Hello everybody, welcome back to another light novel review. Today I'm talking about volume number 2 in Watari's light novel series. My youth romantic comedy is Wrong as I Expected. Often we refer to it as Oregairu because there's a big long honking title and it's nicer to say something short. So in this volume we have the service club tasked with solving two problems. The first one involves a series of emails going around Hachiman's class, and it's causing some tension and discomfort because they're kind of slanderous. So of course the service club is trying to figure out how they can put a stop to this issue. And the second problem that they're trying to deal with is Hachiman's one of his sister's friends. His older sister has become a delinquent. And he's really not sure how or why it happened because she used to be such a responsible girl. And so the service club decides that they're going to try and figure out a way to patch up this relationship between siblings and to see if they can get this girl back on the right path. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you. So I could sit here and talk about the plot of this book and say things like, oh, the incredible mysteries and blah, 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 and that would be a total lie. I will say this. The two storylines that sort of occur in this novel, I really liked. I thought they were really good vehicles for the characters and to get me emotionally invested in the book because they were quite relatable. I mean, who hasn't seen gossip or rumors or so forth cause problems with relationships? Who hasn't seen, messages being passed around classrooms that are, degrading people and, you sit there and try and figure out how can you make it stop and how can you fix these relationships that are getting damaged? And I think that it's a very relatable, whether you have siblings or not. I think that whole idea of having someone that you're close to all of a sudden seeming to change and you're not sure why, and part of you sort of wonders if maybe it's your fault, and all you really want to do is get back that relationship that you had with that person. I think that's a really relatable thing. And human relationships are what this series is all about. And the stories, as much as they are there to give our characters something to do, their purpose really seems to be to show us our characters, to develop our characters. Hachiman Hikigaya is one of the most complex and interesting light novel characters in any of the light novels that we have had put out in English officially so far. That is my opinion. And it's really because of how he's handled in this book. I talked a little bit in my last review about Sword Art Online Volume 10 about the whole idea of show don't tell. And that my biggest issue with the book was it felt like the author was just telling me things, hammering me over the head with exposition. And I was like, I just want you to tell me a good story that lets me see what's happening. And this book, by contrast, is like a masterclass in how to take a character who is telling us a story in the first person and to show us through his words, through his actions, through his thoughts, just who he is as a person. And the thing about Hikigaya that I think that it makes me say that he's so complex is because he has all these different layers and all of them are on display. You just have to look for them. It's not like he tells you explicitly because I'm not even sure if he's really aware of it all himself. So we have, of course, the sarcastic, sardonic character that degrades and badmouths the people around him. But then at the same time, we have this character who is aware of the good qualities of those exact same characters who surround him. He's also aware of his own failings, even at the same time that he seems to have a superiority complex. And underneath all of it is this broken, heartbroken, lonely boy that my heart just sometimes bleeds for. And I just I find him so relatable as a character. Because he's complex, because there's different things to him, and because as we go through this series, and now, of course, volume 2, because we're a little bit more into it, these things are becoming more evident in him as a person because he's now being forced into relationships. You can almost see how he's used his self-imposed loner status to hide all of that pain, hide all of those hurts, and to cover it up with this persona of, I'm a loner and that makes me superior, and so I don't need to deal with this. But really what elevates the book, in my opinion, what elevates the series, is that he's not the only good character. Whether we're talking about Yui Yugahama, whether we're talking about Yukina, whether we're talking about even Hayama, the sort of prince of the classroom, it doesn't really matter who we're talking about as far as a character goes. There are layers to them. They are interesting characters. They have faults. They have things that make them seem like very dependable characters, and at the same time, they seem very broken. Yukina, we start seeing a lot more, I would say, of different elements of her personality in this book. We start to see some cracks in that very cold and hard exterior that she puts forward. You really find, I think that with this book, what really makes it stand out is that it is so different from a lot of the other light novels, well, pretty much all the light novels that we have currently in English. I mean, when I take a look at my shelf, and I mean, you all know that pretty much since this new wave of light novel popularity, that started with like Sword Art Online, Excel World, and so forth, and, a little bit earlier with Spice and Wolf and such. I mean, I have read at least one volume of almost every series that has been put out in the past 2 years. And when I take a look at my shelf, I mean, what do I see? I see isekais, I see post-apocalyptics, I see magic, I see all of these things. And now we have a series that you can relate to. It is stuff that happens in your life or has happened in your life. It involves people that you're like, I recognize this kind of a person, not just because they are a archetype that is predictable and is, seen in every single light novel or anime or manga out there, but rather that I know this kind of person because I actually see this person every day in my day-to-day life. It is a really great series in that way, that it's giving us something that we really don't have a lot of. And so I think what it boils down to is this. For volume number 2, I actually enjoyed this volume more than volume number 1. I think part of it was because the problems that the Service Club were dealing with just seemed a little closer to home. They just seemed a little bit more relatable. It wasn't like we were just fighting over like the tennis courts and who's going to use the tennis courts at the school, right? It seemed like a little bit more of a broader problem that you could apply to broader world and the broader lifestyles of just about anybody. I mean, whether you play tennis or not. I like this one too because I just felt that our characters, because we're past the whole introduction stage, we're really much more into the characters growing and changing and evolving. Like, when I finished this book, just the way that Hikigaya's character is by the end of this book and the stuff he's saying, like, God, it was just, man, my heart was like bleeding for him by the end of it. I really liked volume 2. I thought this one was better than volume 1. If you love your action, if you love your guys kicking ass and all that kind of stuff, if you love your fantasy and your monsters, obviously this is not the series for you. But if you're burned out on isekais, if you're burned out on fantasy and you're like, I just want something that is like reading about people that are out there, you know, that I can relate to and that are trying to solve problems that I understand and I have encountered, then this is the series. This is pretty much what we have available to us, officially translated in English right now. And I think it's a great series. And like I said, Hikigaya as a narrator is a fantastic character. I love his sarcasm. I love the fact that he throws out so many pop cultural and literature references and everything else that they've actually included an index at the back of the book to actually explain page by page all the different things that he says. Because some of this stuff is like, you know, Japanese pop singers from the 70s and 80s, like even that kind of stuff. So all in all, Oregairu, volume number 2, really, really decent book. Great series. Gives you definitely something a lot different than what we have in the vast majority of other light novels that are currently being released officially in English. And, you know, if you're looking for that slice of life kind of experience, well, this is it. This is the book that you should be picking up. Absolutely. So for my next review, because, you know, we can't get away from not so much slice of life and realism, I'm going to be reviewing volume number 1 of the Magical Girl Raising Project, a dark magical girl series in the vein of Madoka and, you know, the hundreds of series and stories that have kind of been related to Madoka over the years. But you know what? I have to admit, I like Magical Girls series. You know, most of my big anime journey in my later part of my life started off with Sailor Moon. So, kind of have a soft spot for the whole magical girl thing. So I'm kind of looking forward to reading this and seeing what it is like. If you want to pick up your own copy of Oregairu volume number 2, I do have a link down below in the description. And, you know, it makes a couple pennies that helps the channel out too, so I can buy more books to review for you all. So if you love light novels and you're brand new here, don't forget to subscribe so you can see all of my future light novel reviews, including Magical Girl Raising Project and future volumes of Oregairu. I really appreciate all of you joining me in this review, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Till then, bye-bye for now.